worse than Craigslist looks right now. And yet that was like the most amazing thing that was available to us, to actually go and search the web. And so I remember the first time I ever logged onto the internet was in the OAC. I don't know if you still have the name of that building. OAC? Yeah, that's clearly doesn't exist anymore. But I logged on the internet. I got my email. I think I was a junior or senior. I got this email thing. I remember thinking, I don't exactly get it. Maybe I'll try this again in a month. I think I logged back in. So there was generally no interest because these companies hadn't IPO'd yet, and people hadn't started kind of getting rich on it. And there hadn't been headlines in the news every day about people starting companies and getting rich. So imagine first, there's no interest from a financial community to go invest in startups, and there wasn't really interest from the ground to go start companies. Not really much at all. And I remember I was one of the few guys out there who was trying to talk to people about to see if anybody out there wanted to start a company, and it was hard to find a couple other guys who wanted to sit down and have like a brainstorm session. So this meeting right here, nothing like this existed. There wasn't a room full of 80 people who kind of raised their hand and said, I want to spend some time thinking about a startup. And that's really pretty amazing. It goes way, way beyond that because the community tools that you have to connect go well beyond this room. We didn't have LinkedIn. So now you've got LinkedIn. You get on LinkedIn, and there's a whole world of people that you might want to meet. And this is crazy. AngelList. Who knows what AngelList is? About half. AngelList is a place, a social network, where people raise their hand saying, I'm going to give you money for your startup. I mean, you have to do more than ask for it. It's not that simple. They don't just write a check to you, but there is a list of people who have shown interest in funding startups, and that simply did not exist. Back what we had was we were calling family friends and family friends' parents who we knew growing up. The only people we knew had money, we just call them and tell them we're starting a company. And of course, every one of them was just like, yeah, I don't have any money. I mean, I think they had money because I'd been to their houses as a kid. They had pretty nice houses. I think they shouldn't have any money for us. So LinkedIn, AngelList, and I'm gonna spend a couple minutes plugging it at the end of the night tonight. Something I'm building right now with Tina back here called Persona. I think it's another social network that's really important to be on, and it's going to help you identify other people around you who can help form a team with. So I'm pretty excited about that. Capital requirements. The capital requirements to start a company back then were crazy. You really could start a software company for probably less than $3 million. And just to give you a few ideas of some of the things that cost money. Back when we started Apply Semantics in '99, what I think we spent to set up our data center and to get a certain amount of hosting, the amount of resources we probably spent on that was probably $400,000 or $500,000 to set up the system. I think you could get that exact same system today from Amazon Web Services, AWS, for a few $100s a month. And it would require you no people, you just turn it on and there it was. It's so crazy to think how the barrier of hosting changed. The barrier of computing power also changed. Back then, 20 years ago, you'd spend $1,500 for a computer, which was 20 years ago dollars, and the monitor was the nastiest green and black monitor. Does anybody remember the green and black monitors? They were pretty garbage. It wasn't all that exciting to look at. And so the screen you have on your iPhone right now is literally about 1,000 times better. I mean, 1,000? I don't know. Way, way better. What else besides distribution? So when I sit around with one or two other people around this campus who actually had an interest in starting a startup with me, we would talk about software that we would try to write, or games or programs or something that would be interesting to people. And the next thing you have to think about would be distribution. Now, get this. This is the best idea we had for distribution back then, or anybody had for distribution. Does anybody remember how AOL grew? AOL, the first big internet service provider. Anybody remember how they grew? I see someone kind of nodding. They mailed CD-ROMs. That's right. They mailed CD-ROMs to every single person in the mail. That was the best idea. So back then, you couldn't press less than 1,000 CD-ROMs. So we had a software idea of something we were going to build, and we had to go and print 1,000 CD-ROMs for like $2 a piece. So it was $2 just to have a CD-ROM that you're going to hand to someone. I mean, the chances that person's going to take it, bring it back to their computer, which they might not even have, and install us, and then use it, and then maybe they're going to send you a check where you say, if you like the software, please upgrade it and send $39. Like, the barriers to entry were huge. It was very, very difficult. And so to start a software company, you needed $3 or $5 million. And what happened when someone like me walked into a VC firm and asked for $3 or $5 million? I literally remember the feeling almost getting laughed out of the room, because we hold our executive summary, we print it in front of them, and after we gave our pitch, we were pretty excited, enthusiastic, and we felt like these are good ideas. They literally were like, they looked at me and my brother, like, how old are you? I'm like, 25. He wrote 25. He like, started my brother, he's like, how old are you? And my brother's like, 29. He wrote 29. He's like, okay, what do you think you're going to do with this $5 million? There was a very, it was a patronizing comment. The idea at the time, though, there weren't 20-something kids like Zuckerberg and Evan Spiegel and Sergey and Larry who had made any money, so it seemed fairly ridiculous to give a big check to a kid who hadn't really figured out how to spend this money. It was very rare for someone who was young to have made any money, because it was so much harder to scale. You build an app today, you put it in the Android store, the Play Store, the App Store, and tomorrow the whole world can get it. It is crazy how the barriers to entry to go and start a business have just been washed away for you guys in 20 years. Now, I'm not going to say that it's totally easy. It isn't. And in fact, in some ways it might even be a little harder. Why? Because we've reached this winner-take-all society. There's one Snapchat winner, and maybe there were other Snapchat apps, they didn't win. There was one Google search engine winner. There were 10,000 search engines when I was growing up 20 years ago, literally 10,000 different search engines. And for a while, there were probably 10 of them that were worth $1 billion or more. Names like Excite, InfoSeek, LookSmart, AltaVista, Yahoo, Lycos, GoToNet, Webcrawler, any others? Ask Jeeves. Each one of these is worth over $1 billion. All of those are gone. Yahoo's not really valued on search engine technology today. It's really valued for its email users, its interest in Alibaba, and some cash in the bank. Basically, Google won that game. So $400 billion of market cap goes to one winner. So the barriers to go and create a business are lower. The challenges to win a business might be a little bit higher. But you can win so much bigger. So there are trade-offs. So what should you go and do now? I wrote down this list of things I thought you should go and do now. And pretty neat that the guys who are leading the Bruin Entrepreneurs here already mentioned my first two of them. So I think they're on the right track, and it's good that you're here. The first one I wrote down was, while you're here in school, just meet people, talk to people, brainstorm, get together and start feeling it out, feeling what a team feels like, feeling out what someone else's expertise is, trying to figure out what your own expertise is. What are you interested in? What kind of a team? Do you like to be a lone wolf? Do you like to work in a team of three? Are you more the marketing guy? Are you more the tech person? Figure all that stuff out now by kind of working through these, whatever types of activities you get into in this room. And remember, it's not always just about what you're going to build tonight, but it's also about the process by which you get to that goal and seeing how you feel out the process. The second thing I wrote, which you guys already mentioned, hackathons. So again, 20 years ago, we didn't have hackathons on campus. It didn't exist. All of a sudden, they're kind of happening everywhere. I sort of think, like, Hollywood is crazy. Like, The Social Network, the movie, The Social Network came out. They, like, glamorize these hackathons where people are getting drunk and taking these shots every 3 minutes. That doesn't make any sense. You can't possibly code after you've been taking shots every 3 minutes. And most coders I know, that didn't exist. Don't do that. Don't do that. Take a couple of shots at the end of the night after you've coded a bit. But all of a sudden, Hollywood got excited with hackathons, and now all of a sudden all these schools are doing hackathons. So whether it had to come from Hollywood or it's really happening organically, it doesn't matter. Hackathons are great. It's a great way for you guys to go and get some experience, work with some team members, try and fill some ideas. A little sub-bullet to that. I really think that I didn't learn that much at UCLA. I really don't think I did. I think statistics was important. That was a good class. I think databases was important. That was a good class. But besides those two classes, And maybe algorithms are complex. I'll get a third class. How many classes? How many classes?
35.
30? Yeah, more than that? I don't know. Whatever it was, the vast majority of them didn't help me. And I don't think they helped most of the people I know. So do whatever you gotta do, get some decent grades, don't do horrible. Are there any professors in this room? Yeah? Yeah? No professors? All right. Put your. I'm not listening. Yeah, earmuffs. Yes. Listen, it's important. It's important through the process of can you get through a class? Can you learn the material? But I also think these hackathons are really pretty important. I think it's the closest thing I can think of to what's actually happening in the real world. In the real world, nobody comes up to you and tells you, like, here's what to do in 10 weeks. And then you have to go and fulfill these guidelines to get there. It's a narrow path. In the real world, the path is a lot less narrow. It's more of a wide field, and you can you're kind of going all over and kind of figuring out your own path. And so maybe school is good about helping you figure out that path. Along the way, you've thrown some of these hackathons, which kind of feels real world to me. And hopefully, by the time you graduate, you've had experience of both. Is that fair, guys? All right. Get some tech skills. Now, some of you might be thinking, I'm an English major, so I don't need to. I'll be the marketing person. I'll be the salesperson. That's cool. You can be the marketing person. You can be the salesperson. It's pretty amazing how much more valuable you are if you're the tech person. It's pretty crazy. Right now, we have a really huge imbalance in the supply-demand curve, and most startups and big companies, we can't find engineers. There's just not enough engineers available. And so, if you're an engineer right now, you are commanding a lot more value in the equation. What does that equate to? More salary, more equity, more choices, more options, more whatever you want. That's the beauty. So if you're a person who's thinking to yourself, I'm not that good at math, I'm not that good at science, there's a lot of new tools that you don't have to be a great. There are a lot of tools that help you go and do things that you don't have to be a straight coder. You could be a UX specialist. You could be a user interface specialist. There are certain platforms you can code within. Maybe you become an expert in Unity, and you become doing graphics world or gaming, something like that. You don't always necessarily need to be a pure coder. If you are a pure coder, that's great. If not, otherwise pick up some tech skills. Try working with different groups. I think there's a tendency sometimes you make a friend or a different friend your first or second year of school, and then next thing you know, you take all your classes together, and you guys are kind of like study partners. And that's good. It's good to have a tight friend or a tight study partner, someone who always has your back. But it's also really good to try and revolve those study partners and try and kind of expand your network. Sometimes it's hard, but maybe invite someone else to your little study group, or do a little trade with someone. It's kind of like dating in a sense that by the time you get married, you want to date a few people so you kind of know what you like, and which is fun in a whole different reason. I just got married, so. She couldn't come tonight. Yeah, I wanted her to come. She wasn't feeling so well. Let's see. So do an internship. If you can find an internship, try and surround yourself with a smart company. There is sometimes a tendency, I know for myself, I went and took the job that offered me the most amount of money, because I think that's what at the time I was interested in. And it ended up being a good experience, but it wasn't necessarily an experience that gave me the most exposure to management. I worked for a very big company after college, AMD, 10,000 plus people. So you can work for a big company, and that's cool. You won't get as much exposure to senior management, and that means you won't get to see the entire company. I brought Rachel with me tonight, back there. I have a whole other company I started called Deep Dive Media. We operate in the Napa Valley Grill Building, 1100 Glendon, and we've got probably 7 or 8 Bruins who work for us, maybe 5 full-time, maybe 3 interns. So we're always looking, hiring for people. And the cool thing about being an intern at our company is you're pretty much in the same room with the marketing guy and the sales guy and the engineer and me and Rachel. And so if you're interested in like, how does this Facebook social marketing thing work? You're just 3 feet over. You can look over. You can ask the person like, what are you doing? If you work for Google, and I did work for Google for 5 years, that's great. But all the sales guys sit in one room together, and maybe the marketing people are like literally in a different building. And my manager was literally 600 miles away. So, which is great if you want to like little secret about big small company, big company, small company. You're gonna have the option after you graduate to go and work for a company potentially. The inside scoop is this: you can make more money and work less hard at a big company. It's really pretty easy to kind of skate by because people just simply don't work as hard. Your manager's not around, and really the person who has the most, the person who cares most of what's going on, the CEO and the senior management company, they're like 4 levels above you. You're never going to walk by your desk. They're never going to know your name, and that's like pretty cool because I did have a friend who started spending most of his time playing online poker. And he got very good. He actually went and quit, became a professional poker player for a while. I think he did that currently with his job for a while. I think he did both for like 9 months. At one point, his manager, who's my manager too, called me. He's like, "Hey, what's going on? Is so-and-so working?" I was like, "Oh yeah, he's doing fine." I walked over. I was like, "Dude, everyone knows we can do our job in about 30 minutes a week. So just do at least that 30 minutes." So big companies are sort of like that. I'm kind of kidding a little bit. You're going to learn, and but you can skate by. You cannot skate by in a small company. You're going to be forced to learn, forced to work, forced to participate, and you're going to make less money. But in many cases, it's a profoundly better experience because you actually go through the efforts of like, you're on the minor league team, you're trying to make the major leagues, as opposed to kind of riding the bench because Michael Jordan's out there and he's crushing it, and you don't really have to because he's already putting points on the board. And you're just kind of, the profits are rolling in, and you can just hang tight. So I don't have a problem with it either way. I actually don't pass any judgment if anybody wants to go out and do the big company thing for most of the years of their life. I've got friends who do it, and it's great. You kind of starting a company is a total mind screw in the sense that it's pretty hard. There's a really great chance of failure. It's pretty miserable when things are going poorly. Things go poorly often. And when things go bad, if you're the founder or you're one of the 2 founders, you're going to lose a lot of nights of sleep, maybe early in your life when you should be out there having fun at Coachella, getting drunk, talking to the person next to you, maybe making some bad decisions. And you're not going to be doing those things if you're totally consumed and worried about everything that's going on back home at your startup, which is about to run out of money in 38 days. You're going to have to lay off your best friend that you hired here at UCLA. And you met here at UCLA, and you're going to have to lay him off. And that's going to be a miserable experience. You're going to have to make that choice. So, I don't know. I feel like there's a few different ways. You could go and get an intern. You could go and get kind of a junior role at a small company. You can learn what's going on. You can kind of put in the work. You can not worry about running out of money, and you can still go to Coachella, and you can still go to Bruins games. You can tailgate. You can even go to early tailgate and stay late because probably on Friday and Saturday night, you can still think about your own life. If it's your own company, there's a good chance on Saturday night you're working on the downtime situation because the website went down, and that's pretty miserable, and you're the only one who cares. So these are the trade-offs. I want to go to Q&A now. I want to go to Q&A. What do we got? Questions?
So how did you end up getting investors interested?
We asked for money from pretty much every person that we met. Literally. I think we heard the answer no 25 or 30 times before we heard a maybe. And it finally came from a contact I had made at AMD. A guy had done a startup computer business, and I asked him if we can go and talk to him about our business, and he committed $500,000 for 7% of the company late '99, and that was our first check.
How did you get your first big indice of success?
The big what?
The big hurdle. When you brought in your big institutional client.
Oh.
How did you get that?
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna reframe that question. Our first taste of success was the craziest thing in the world. 4 days after we launched our search engine, we made a search engine. 4 days after we launched it, we won the Internet World Best of Show Award, and we were plastered all over magazines and internet, and people were getting not alphanumeric text messages on your pagers. Totally different thing. Yes. So 4 days in, we had all this attention, and a lot of the people we called us back, and all of a sudden we felt we were on top of the world because all these people were using our search engine. U.S. News World Report called us one of the top 5 search engines in the world. They didn't know what the hell they were talking about. Alongside Google and someone else. And when you're 25 years old, you totally believe everything that all the writers say about you. When you're older, you realize most of these articles are not true. They're written by writers who are just paid $30 or $50 to get an article out, and they're really great for sending to your parents, because your parents will be very proud of you and get that article. It's cool because it feels good, but unfortunately, those articles don't propel traffic or growth. So that's my answer to the question you did not ask.
How did your team come together? How did you know that was the right team to go with?
I was fortunate that I founded this company with my older brother, who there's a remarkable degree of trust with a family member so that was great, and we kind of had a respect for each other's intellect. In many ways, my brother and I had been running businesses since we were 10 and 12 years old. How many people here sold candy or sold something in school, in middle school or high school? That's awesome. Like half of you. I actually think there is an interesting correlation between people who sold something in school and people who go on. It's a really important experience. And my brother had made a best friend at Caltech, and we had another cousin. So the cousin is just smart, solid dude who we trusted. So we had a high degree of trust, high degree of intelligence, but we had no experience and really didn't know what we were doing at all.
How was your transition from a big company to a small company in terms of the work you're doing, the coding difficulty? How was the transition?
So at AMD, back in 1999 at AMD, I was not working that hard. I was leaving at 5. I could still go to happy hour, and that was nice. They gave me this company car. I used to put on a suit, which I thought was cool at the time. Later on, I realized it's not that cool to wear a suit. It was. I literally thought I was going crazy because I was surrounded by people that I wasn't learning from. I wasn't doing work that was interesting to me. I had no passion for what I was doing, even though I had all this material stuff. And I left all this material stuff. Look, there were times when I'd get alphanumeric page 9:30 more. I'd call hello, because I was just waking up. And she's like, "Are you sleeping?" This is the first office. I was like, no, just the thing in my throat. I wasn't trying at this job at all. I quit that job, went to a startup where I was making 60% less money. Basically went from about a $100,000 salary to a $40,000 salary. I was working 3 times as hard, and I totally ignored my personal life after that, and I was way happier and excited and passionate about my life because I was doing something that meant something to me, whereas I just wasn't before. So that was my transition.
Who was the single most influential mentor in the development of your startup, and how did you go about inspiring?
I'm gonna reframe your question. My greatest mentor in life, I think, was actually my dad, and I made a video about him. If you want to watch it on YouTube, it's called 7 Lessons from My Father, and that's my 7 lessons about. Both my parents were teachers. They did not have much money, and they didn't have much business sense at all. But they just taught us to be honest and to work hard at education, and to put your best foot forward, and they were just supportive. They were supportive people. So yeah, he was the guy. The other, it was really small. But one of the things that allowed me to quit my job is when I was making more money and I made less money. I didn't realize how important it was at the time, but my dad had made an investment for me, which allowed me to make an extra $800 a month. That $800 a month was enough to pay my rent at the time, and paying that rent. So I don't want to say that. I want to say that. Well, we're all given different cards. We don't, some of us have access to more money. Some have access to more emotional support. Some of us have access to business relationships, and whatever you have access to, try to leverage that.
What was your biggest failure? Like, yeah, we all know that you sold applied semantics to Google for a lot of money, but I'm sure it almost failed along the way. At least many times along the way, probably. What was the most stark one that you remember? We had a huge financial roller coaster with the company. We were within 30 days of running out of money 3 separate times, and we had to lay off 10 or more people twice. And we at one point had lawsuits coming in from our former CEO and a potential an existing investor. There was definitely a time when it felt as if I'm about to tell a story. Who's heard me tell the story? I have.
You have.
I have. Yeah.
All right. Late in 2002, we'd poured through about $7 million of investment. Our CEO he wasn't a great CEO. He spent about $5 million in an 11-month period. And he did that by bringing in consultants that were, paid way too much money for doing nothing. There was the one sales guy who got like $140,000 and he never had a sale. And there was a consultant who got $50,000 for writing a report that was like a few pages long. And he was spending money in shady ways. And so we eventually had to fire the CEO. By the way, at the time, why did we have the CEO? Because investors wouldn't invest in us unless we brought on a seasoned CEO, which at the time literally meant a 50-year-old plus white man with gray hair and sort of tall and kind of an idiot. But that's what it meant at the time, and that was not uncommon, that you had to put that provision in your deal, and we did. So we got stuck with that guy who was really bad for us. After kind of blowing through all our money, we had not really figured out a business model. We had launched AdSense in the year 2000, but nobody wanted to use it. A lot of people have beta tested it, but for 2 years it sat on a shelf and nobody used the product known as AdSense. And so we fired the CEO. He threatened this lawsuit, and it basically looked like we had to shut down. It didn't really seem like there was a way out of this. And so as we're brainstorming that night, the founders of the company trying to figure out, do we wind down? We had about $400,000 left of our $7 million. So here are the numbers you have to work with. We had a burn rate of $200,000, $250,000. We had $400,000 left in the bank of $7 million that we raised. He gave us about 45 days of runway. And shutdown costs and wind down costs of the business were like 50, 70 grand to deal with all the legal costs and maybe paying out the rent or, because you have leases and things like that you have to pay down. So we had maybe 30 or 45 days left. It didn't look like we could really effectively turn the corner. Maybe there was a shot. So we were brainstorming all the ideas do we fire everybody? Do we try and merge with someone? Do we try and get acquired for peanuts real quickly so at least we have jobs? Because at this point, we've all been working for $40,000 for 4 years. We don't really have any money. 5 of us still live in a house, basically. So, everyone's throwing out their smart ideas, and I'm pretty upset and almost despondent at this point. I was like, let's just go TP this fucker's house. That was my idea. And they were like, no, let's work on this and let's spreadsheet model. I was like, guys, it's over. Let's
go fuck with this house. And they were like, Eytan, we don't have time to deal with you right now. You're being an idiot. And I was like, I'm totally serious. He's ruined our lives. Let's go and go down in a blaze of glory. At least we'll be proud of ourselves. As he's taking us down, we're taking him down. And my brother's like, I have so much to deal with right now. The last thing I want to deal with is bailing you out of jail. And then he's like, I've got a better idea. Why don't we make, he says to me, my brother, all wide-eyed, because he's kind of a long vision guy. He runs a company called Factual in Century City. It's raised like $33 million for Andreessen Horowitz and Index. All wide-eyed, my brother says to me, Eytan, why don't we make this company so valuable that he'll regret the day he ever did this to us? I remember thinking, that's the stupidest fucking idea I ever heard. But they talked me down that night from doing this. And we did lay off a lot of people, including a good friend of mine here from UCLA. That was not just a what-if that happened. We laid off a lot of friends, and we figured out a way to negotiate. Then we had to pay this crazy CEO out, but we figured out a way to pay him out over a year instead of a one-month settlement. So that gave us that negotiation was able to stretch us out another, a few more days. And well, we just barely by the skin of our teeth were able to get enough revenue going that we just barely made profitability in that time. And, like just skimming around $100,000 in the bank, we started going back up. And then 6 months later,